Hello everyone, my name is Vitalia Povilaitytė-Pietri. I'm a pharmacist and transdisciplinary researcher. Since 2016, I am also a scientific collaborator at the Faculty of Pharmacy at Mons University, Belgium. Today, I wanted you to invite into circle with several researchers and practitioners with whom I am working on nature connection research. We are all together trying to understand how nature-based health practices influence our health, well-being, and how it shapes our society. We are also very curious how our nature connection and our relationship with nature affects different environmental challenges that we are facing, and how nature could be an entering door to finding for solutions to address these challenges. Today we are very happy to reflect what is conviviality in our lives, in our work, and how it could be a door to engage into more diverse conversations with humans and non-humans. So we are inviting to join our circle. Good listening, and please come back to us if you are interested in our work. Thank you very much. Good listening.
I am working on my PhD dissertation at Södertörn University in Stockholm, and my focus is on different kinds of nature connection practice, and especially on the more existential or spiritual dimensions of such practices. So I'm looking at it in a contemporary context, but with some historical dimensions, and seeing this more and more as a kind of movement that is in ranging between well-being practice and environmental or green activism. And parts of it can be more towards the one, and other parts can be more in the other direction. But there is enough in common, I think, in these many different practices to merit a kind of common definition of it, or to see it as a movement or a milieu or something in that that kind of category. So this is what I'm doing, and my PhD is due in spring of next year. So I'm working intensely now on get the manuscript ready by the end of this year. This is what I do, and I have been involved I've been to the IFTD conferences and retreats from the first one in 2018 and then in 2019, and then the ones that have been online during the COVID period. So I feel close to this IFTD network as well.
Hi, yeah, my name is Dave Barlow, and I live and work in Manchester in England, and I'm a policy officer for the local district council, and I helped develop nature strategies for the city of Manchester. So that's natural environment strategies such as tree and woodland strategies, biodiversity strategies, green infrastructure strategies. And basically I help, it's very much a collaborative process. So working in partnership to develop the strategies, but as well to turn those strategies into practical action. So my background is basically I've been an environmental manager specializing in urban ecology for around 25 years. I did a master's degree in environmental management with a focus around biophilia, so very much about people's perceptions of open space right at the start. I've recognized the importance that nature and open space can play in people's health and well-being. And obviously in a post-COVID world, we're seeing just how vital and how important green spaces are to members of the public, as well as, you know, for wildlife in its own sense.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Henrik. I've met you both. Henrik more times already. I don't know, Christina. I think I know who Gösta is. So hi, everyone. So, well, I just to recap, and it's lovely that you say we have multiple personalities, because certainly I feel like that as well. So I work all around forest, things around the forest. So basically, I work for the forest organization here in Belgium. I'm going to change my name actually, because my name is not International Forest Therapy Days, although it's one of the things I do. But so I work for Bosplus, which tries to protect forest in Flanders. And I run my own little consultancy, Nature Minded, and we try to do practice-oriented research toward, or very close to practice research on nature's well-being effects, and do different kinds of applications on forest bathing that are inspired by forest bathing. And together with Vitalia and Henrik as well, we run this IFT days. We bring together the IFT days community. So the International Forest Therapy Days, which is changing, I suppose, as well a little bit, but is centered around this mindful connecting with nature and a special focus on protecting forests. So that's me.
And I'm not a scientific person or a policymaker. I'm just living on Earth, and I'm quite alarmed by what we're doing in general, and by our anthropocentric attitude that's quite destructive, given all the machinery we have at our disposition and the means we have. So conviviality, but also with all living beings, would be a nice, I don't know what, view, vision. I don't know if that's enough. I live in Brussels.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sugi. As Christina was saying, I used to be in Brussels, and previously I was working with Vitalia. And I also met Katrina while I was there. So I have a big interest in nature, because not only because I'm a biologist, but also because I was born in Sri Lanka, and I had a really nice experience as a childhood with nature. So right now I'm in Montreal, where I am in charge of, so I'm still trying to take some initiative related to nature connection. So for the moment, I'm in charge of a small community garden where we have 56 gardeners, and where we have at least 20 different nationalities. And so it's very multicultural. So I could see in everyday life, not only the relations with nature, but also how conviviality is taking part, let's say, within the garden and in their life as well.
In terms of what conviviality means to me, I probably couldn't exist without conviviality, because I think there are a number of different definitions, but I certainly think that mutual respect is a big part of that. Respect between individuals, between humans, but as well respect between people and places, and trying to break down barriers that may exist to create connections between people and places. So for me, it's very much about developing trust, building confidence, and working together towards shared values. So yeah, I'll leave it there. That's probably enough for me.
Henrik, I think you are most academic from all of us. At this stage of life, so maybe, yeah, how you see from your work, maybe how this conviviality, does it give access to research your questions or to find ways to approach people? And maybe then in second part, how do you see element of conviviality in this forest-based health practices?
Well, so I'm the most academic. That's an interesting label. I'm not sure that's true, but well, to be honest, I haven't actually worked much on conviviality as a concept in my research. I have encountered the concept and the work of Ivan Illich in some context that I have been in contact with during this field research. And that's one of the major challenges in my PhD research is how to relate theory to my empirical material, because my empirical material also consists of theory. So there's really no clear difference. I mean, in research, we often imagine research in this sort of objectivist fashion, that a researcher observes something from the outside and then makes you know, this great theory to connect all the dots and make everything and explain everything that's going on in these observations. But this perspective, and I think this is actually challenged in many disciplines right now in the academic world, especially in the humanities, of course, but I think it's actually being challenged in other scientific disciplines as well. My perspective, I have a kind of hermeneutic approach that, well, sometimes called hermeneutic phenomenology. I'm interested in the way that we experience the world, what we call the life world, etc., the world that we actually live in. To research this, it's to meet, I mean, the research subjects are people just like me, who also have theories and ideas, and in this way, there's really no clear difference between the empirical material and theory in my work, and this, I guess, in some ways reflects the whole idea of conviviality, that everything is on the same level, in a sense, that we can meet as autonomous entities on the same level, and that we're not sort of placing research above its subject, for example, or outside of its subject. So this is one way that you could see conviviality in this kind of research, which is really cooperative process. This is why I mean, my main method for verification of my observations is actually that both that I make new follow-up interviews with the same people, asking new questions based on what I think I have seen in the first interviews, for example, or other observations. But also that I send my drafts to the people who are involved in the study, so that to get their comments on it. So in this way, the whole research process is collaborative and involves active subjects on all sides. So that's one way of seeing it.
Try to synchronize a little bit because we've been entering this room in a bit different times. So Henrik already shared with us, probably maybe you heard that this method of his work, this collaborative method, it's kind of convivial method that allows him to be in the same level with participants that he is researching together with them. So it's very collaborative approach. And Dave, he shared earlier as well that for him, this collaborative process and developing trust, building relationships with people and places and other beings in urban environment are also basis for his work. So I'm wondering, Katrina, maybe you are also as a practitioner, would you like to add how you see on your work methodology, how it opens access to the knowledge or understanding processes or our functioning or functioning of nature? How do you think method is important that we choose? Because of course, I think there's still, even if Henrik said that we are in transformation and probably even in hard sciences, we start to privilege all types of knowledges, but still some fields are can be very hierarchical still, and to privilege some knowledges over others. So Katrina, do you feel you are also from very equal country? Maybe we will touch later on cultural differences, but how does it feel for you?
Well, I'm completely now going back to the drawing board, because this is a completely new term. I wrote in the chat, it's completely new to me. You invited me to the circle, and of course I go with everything you suggest because it's interesting. But so what first I want to sort of define what that means, because I looked it up on thesaurus and it gives me like this, what I start thinking about. So it's like a potluck or a feast. We come together, we put this together. It's a friendly, almost informal atmosphere. I'm thinking of atmosphere, conviviality, that if you have an activity, there's a convivial atmosphere, I would say. Is that somehow correct? And then I start breaking it down to, so what makes it, what breaks it, who facilitates it, what are the elements that make conviviality, who produces it, or what produces it, and what makes it go away. And because I'm from Finland, so right away I think of, it's very loud, alcohol is involved, this is kind of a party, but and dancing and relaxation. And then I take it to, okay, so what do you do with all these things? What are you trying to, what's the goal of these elements like alcohol or music in bringing together conviviality? What are, if you see what I mean, it's like, what are they trying to mask or produce so that we get to that that thing? And I take it back to forest bathing, which is my field then, and it's not loud, It's not, there's no alcohol, or there's no dancing necessary. Well, there can be dancing. And then it really is about, the first things that I start thinking about is like the fact that you're holding space for each other in nature, and you are partnering with the forest. So there is the reciprocity with the forest. You're basically, that's the collaboration that Henrik was talking about, and maybe Dave was also mentioning, that the collaboration there is with the forest, but also with the people, because you come together, and this is really fresh on my mind because I was just going through the forest bathing research data, that people don't know each other, but they come together, and there's something nice about sharing with people that you don't know. And it's a new experience for a lot of people. I'm just painting a picture now. So it's a new situation for a lot of people, and that makes them all share this newness, this novelty. And because it's new for all of them, it makes it that they have right away have something to share. They become a team right away because they have something to share, and that's the newness. And then, so having not defined what conviviality is and all those elements, I'm thinking in the forest bathing fields, I would look into the holding of the space and the reciprocity and the sharing, but also the guide who is the facilitator of that, who makes it possible that this atmosphere can be created, is not only solely responsible, for sure. The team, the group makes it, but the guide has some keys in her or his hands. That's it.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. It brings me really back to forest. I can sense this feeling. Dave, maybe I come back to you. I think you had very strong your personal nature experiences that really like shaped your life path. And also how through your work, I think you spend a lot of time in nature, observing how people are interacting with nature. How do you see this practice of or relationship being with nature, maybe more than human even nature? And
I think for the group's information, the spaces that I engage with are very, are mostly urban environments, parks and river valleys, and urban woodlands, urban grasslands. But I think what we're finding more and more is that people are recognizing that connection between people and place at a very young age, from forest schools types of activity with children to more mindfulness sessions with adults, and that focus on not just physical but mental health and well-being. And I think in urban environments where we're certainly putting more onus and more focus on looking at where the opportunities are, that nature can play a big part as part of a city's life support system. And certainly that's a big part of where I come from, because again, it's I live next door to a park, and I walk in the park every day, and that park for the last 12 months has become my sanctuary, really, in relation to being able to cope with a situation like COVID has presented us with. And the amount of people I talk to that feel the same way, a lot of green space users who haven't been in those type of environments before, but they've almost been forced into them through COVID, keep coming back because they've recognized the value that green spaces can play, in their lives. And, it isn't extreme to say, I think I've just put a link into a survey that we undertook during the first lockdown, where it was completely reinforced that access to nature was saving people's lives. It was stopping people crumbling in quite difficult times. Whereas parks and green spaces, as Katrina alluded to with her forest bathing, it's that ability to connect, and you don't quite understand why you feel better, and your heart rate starts reducing and your mind starts clearing. That a more complete sensory experience that nature can provide you with is so important. And I think the convivial element is, again, backing up with what Christina said, was that those shared things, really. You might not know the individuals concerned, but this cross-generational value. I walk in my park every day and I'll say hello to 14, 15-year-old kids on bikes as I will to, pensioners, walking their dog. And it's something where there is a shared connection, even though it's unwritten. You don't quite know why, but there's something there that you're here, I'm here, we get something out of this. There might be different things that we're getting out of it, but this is a shared space and a shared opportunity that we're taking advantage of. And certainly from a city perspective, having declared climate emergency, we're not paying lip service to that. There is a real commitment from a political point of view to make Manchester a healthier and a happier place. And I think urban nature plays a big part in that.
Yes, thank you. Sugir, could you add what are your observations from this health garden project? How you understand where this power of conviviality is somehow placed, located, or how it can really reinforce this nature connection work? We don't hear you. Yeah, you're muted.
So from what I experienced and what I understood is that in terms of conviviality between or among humans, as Katrina was saying, for me it was clear that if we really have, let's say, a festive atmosphere, we understand very quickly who is, let's say, in the mood of conviviality and who is not, and it's very clear. But I guess to develop conviviality atmosphere with nature, it is more subtle, and perhaps I think we've discussed in our project as well, among human and even interaction with nature, we need to somehow remove our hat, that we put ourselves to play a role in our society. And it becomes for me quite clear that if we know, actually, if we understand the rule of where we are living, it becomes more or less natural to remove this invisible hat that we wear every day. And for instance, if we go in a party and we are, let's say, we didn't understand until we arrived that it was, let's say, costume party. I mean, in terms of atmosphere, conviviality, it's done. We will be so shocked. We need to address ourselves this question: where am I? What I didn't understand. I think it's the same with nature, but it's less complex. Somehow we are instinctively related to it. So it becomes, let's say, the party is always open. And it's just the mood where we need to put in. So the perception of we have with nature and with ourselves, but in a less stronger level. So from my part, I would say that perhaps it becomes easier for us to remove our invisible hat when we face the nature. So to get into this conviviality atmosphere becomes more simple or easier, because we don't need to feel any competition. So there's no threat, there's no judgment, and it becomes most of the time attractive. I mean, the nature is so beautiful, so I guess we tend to participate in this conviviality atmosphere quickly. So this is how I feel, and this is how I experience, let's say, in Health Garden.
Thanks. It's really a nice observation how we can remove this our hats or masks that we have in nature environment. Christina, I know you spent lots of time in different habitats and in different nature environments, and you have this sensitivity even to more than humans that I think most of your friends of your party friends, they're even not humans. So how does it feel for you moving in this urban space? I know that this noise is there.
Sometimes I just want to kill people. Am I allowed to say this?
You're allowed to say everything.
I'm so sorry. No, I live really in the middle of this the smallest commune of Brussels, with most of nationalities, and not a very good mayor, if I may say so. And we have one small park, and I live next to it. So I have the street, one neighbor, and all the rest is trees and park. And a few weeks ago, I saw a hedgehog in the middle of this. There's nothing around. And there was a hedgehog. So, but when you say party, for me, that is a party, and it's silent. It's really not noisy. And yeah, I don't really know. Conviviality, I don't really know what to say about it. It's really not easy. I have neighbors who really hate me, so I'm not really sure what to say. Yeah. Yesterday, I also heard that there's in India that there's bars who kept open by young people, and it's silence bars, no alcohol and silence. And to me, that sounds like really very festive, where you can connect on another level. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm very chaotic. I thought of a lot of things while you were all talking, and I also read your comments, Dave. Like, you have to feel there's a very feeling safe together is so huge. And that means that there's no judgment, that people try to be open-minded, even if you behave like a bitch or like a moron, that people are still open because there's something behind it. I don't know what it's got to do with conviviality, but I think the safety of it, and that you can release sometimes ugly thoughts or feelings and still be safe, because there will be no judgment, and then you can let it go much easier. And my with humans is because they don't connect. They don't connect with nature. There's a tree in front of me, right? I'm looking right at it. I'm in the middle of the city, and there's no connection from people with it. They just want to, I don't know, they want to play football or be with a car or be with a step and be fast. Or there was something else I wanted to say. I don't remember. Well, it'll come back to me. Yeah, and then I get very angry because it's always destructive. It hurts so much. I was in Mechelen, another example, I was in Mechelen taking the train back to Brussels this week, and I had to go to the new perron in a new building, really architecturally and engineers, and it's a big, huge glass wall. And I came up the roller, the stairway, the electric stairway, and I saw a dead butterfly, and a little bit further on the whole perron, it was full of dead bees. And that's not conviviality. That's not living with animals. That's not living with the web of life. And it costs so much money, and you cannot repair it easily. So that's not conviviality. I think I'm probably more seeing more of the not conviviality. But voila. I'm not gonna take up more time right now. Sorry.
Can I butt in, or do we have did everyone share in the circle already for this round?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Please go ahead, Katrina.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think it's a really good example to use to get an idea of coming to the party and then not being dressed because you didn't get the memo that you're supposed to get dressed. So then I was thinking, what breaks the conviviality and what makes it? So those people don't want you to feel left out. They want to include you, because if you're going to be moping around in the corner, you're going to bring everyone's mood down. So they will share their costumes with you so that you can join in the fun and feel like part of the group. So it's like inclusion, I think, would be one. What else what would be the motivations then? I'm just thinking that Christina, you were saying that people don't, like, your neighbors hate you. Or is that your perception of them?
Some seem to. One of them, there's a couple of young guys there. They're like 5 or 7, or I don't know. One of them told me he killed my cat. He told me 3 times he killed my cat. So I don't think he really. Maybe it's a form of liking. I don't know.
But maybe you don't see the reason why.
No, because they won't talk to me. If I can't, and I would like to find somebody who can be intermédiaire.
Yeah.
Who can mediate between us so that I can understand them, because it's not because he says that I'm judging him or saying that he's evil, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, inclusion, shared interest. That's what was coming up to me. Yeah.
Showing an interest in each other, but then the other also has to want to share their interest. Or yeah. If they don't want to share, then sometimes it's more important for them to be together against somebody. So yeah, maybe that's my role.
Yeah, maybe you will put them together in a more convivial. You will be the.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
No idea. Very mysterious, human mind.
I wonder if it's also about the peaks of emotion that we get. Actually, it's more an interpretation of our own perception of our surrounding. I wonder, for instance, to come back to this party session, if we are not dressed as our surrounding, it is spontaneous, and we know it right now, right? Like, let's say, quickly. And the peak of emotion we have and they have, it's quite strong. But with nature, I have the feeling, this is my perception, it takes time before we know that, oh, we are not, let's say, in this convivial atmosphere, because our interpretation of what is going on gets a longer time to interpret. For instance, I heard a gardener saying that she says that her communication with her own plant, it's so intimate that she knows if somebody else comes and pick up some veggies in her garden. And she says, the next time when I come, my plant is unhappy, and it tells me, like she could see, she said, look at my plant. It is almost dying, drying. And I know it's doing that because it wants to tell me that somebody else put hands in my garden. So it's not that she didn't say, I will know it right away, but it takes time before to get intimate with the nature, and then she will get the response. So I don't know if, for instance, even Christina, when you say, I know when my neighbor says he hates me, and then you get the response right away, and you're feeling, I mean, you have the pick of emotion right away. But with nature, perhaps it's an adaptation. It's somehow, let's say, more or less at a level where you could adjust your emotion. I don't know, adapt yourself to it.
Yeah, maybe this different speed. Sorry, yeah, Christina, please.
Yeah, but maybe nature is not so mean. So then it's more, and you can really feel it. When I have these plants in front of my house, and I'm really not happy with that because they're exposed to everything all the time and everyone. So, but I can feel it when I take care of them. Then you connect, then you commune, and when somebody else comes by and says, "Oh, but you have to bind them together," and then straight away they go with their energy into your plants, you think, "Oh, stop, get away, get away." This is our relationship. It's my relationship with the plants, and don't bring in your energy. That's also why I can't work in somebody else's garden or something. It's very complicated. Well, I don't know if it's.
Yeah, beautiful reflections. Henrik, you've been observing now people interacting with nature a lot in this forest bathing sessions, and I imagine also in other different environments. You are urban dweller sometimes, no, and probably you have this eye. So how do you see this? Yeah, different maybe speed of human action, no, and plants or trees that can be very slow, and probably takes time to synchronize these different speeds of these different beings. How does it feel for you?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of what has been said here has been about how to sort of meet on equal level, and how to, you know, like Sugir said, take off the hats that we're wearing in all kinds of contexts, and I think it's very common that people experience nature as and nature beings as less judgmental than humans. That human society is human society contains all these requirements. We're observed. We have to, you know, look in certain ways. We have to behave in certain ways. We have we have these masks and identities that we need to wear. While in nature, we can just put all this aside, which also is conducive to a more sort of equal and collaborative attitude and between people involved in some kind of collective work in nature. So and conviviality is a lot about working together, as I interpret it. It's about doing work where everyone can participate and contribute to it in some way. And one aspect of this that has been discussed at least since the 70s is the issue of technology. And by technology, I mean technology in a very wide sense, including also intellectual inventions, social constructions, etc. And one of the topics that has been discussed in the academic circles discussing conviviality has been the necessity of having a technology that is in a human scale, as opposed to this technology that is on a superhuman scale that takes over our lives and that is not accessible to a single human being. I mean, we have no way of we can't even we can't fix our own cars now. We can't produce the tools that we're working with to produce everything that we need, while in a more human scale, the technological world, we would have access to all this. I mean, we would have the means to produce our tools and everything that we use in order to collaborate, so that we can all be part of the processes of work and production and not being alienated from it as just consumers. That's one of the points there. And that has made me think a little bit about, for example, forest bathing and this kind of kinds of practices. That there is a process of professionalization in this movement, and this has its positive sides, of course, that people are becoming better at this, better at guiding people and just developing the knowledge and skills required to guide people into these kinds of experiences. But there's also a potential danger in an over-professionalization, because it puts these hats on us. It divides people, and it makes it harder to. It can at least be a hindrance to this flow of collaboration. It's something to keep in mind, I think, although I don't have a real solution to it, but it's something to just think of.
Yeah, thank you, Henrik. Thanks, everyone. When I listen to you, I have a bit feeling that there are some dimensions that are linked to the environment itself, like nature environment. How it could be that it's up to human dimension, and that is not hierarchical and not something that stresses us and overwhelms us, but really that is inviting and environment that makes us feel safe and not stressed, and being able to connect with this our true nature and with all surroundings. And I also feel that there's this our relationships, like how we behave in this nature environment with each other and with other species, no? So they're a bit like, I think they're two different things. But if we really kind of focus on place creation, I think there's some, I don't know, some developments that are very difficult to regenerate, no? Especially you, Dave, when you work. I think Manchester is also very urbanized, no? Like Brussels, it's very urbanized. In Belgium, we have many cities. Yeah, Stockholm also to some extent can be also quite urbanized. So how do we regenerate these places that it's more accessible to human and to this nature connection? Dave, do you have some idea?
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance, isn't it? I think, you know, what I've been listening to as well, it's, you know, the concept of conviviality is very much based around like shared feelings or maybe a shared experience. But the other thing as well is when, you know, when I want to connect with nature, it's something whereas it's quite a personal thing. It's quite a, you know, it's quite a spiritual thing in some ways. I'll go for a walk and I don't want to be with a group sometimes. I want that connection between me and nature. I don't necessarily want to be, it's not one or the other, I think. I think nature can play its part with conviviality, but as well, I think sometimes there is, as we know, you know, with forest bathing or with other forms of mindfulness or just going for a walk, sometimes the simplest of pleasure is taken with yourself and nature. So it's you and your thoughts and the wind and the rain and the leaves and the bird song. And it's an incredibly personal feeling, really. You know, it's in a deeply urban environment. It's as close as I get to a church is my local park, really. And those moments when I can find some form of solace and reflection in a space over a particular moment of my life or whatever it is. But I certainly think in an urban environment, that idea of having spaces that have got nature factored into them you know, are becoming more to the fore, really. We use a term like landscape-led approaches, whereas we're actually integrating nature and nature-based solutions into those thought processes from a very, very early stage. And I think that is yielding results. We've got some good examples of new spaces that have been designed, you know, co-designed and co-developed with nature, with mindfulness, with a lot of surveys into people watching, into how people are interacting with that space before the park was created and then after the park created. So there's going to be a lot of monitoring and research that will underpin how that story is told. But yeah, I was just thinking, just as Henrik was talking before, I thought, you know, the thing about it, one of the big factors of me is actually maybe my conviviality is actually maybe waving at somebody in a distance, but I'm actually, yeah, I've got a shared connection with that person over there. But actually it's me and the trees, or it's me and the river. And it's me and nature most of the time. Just don't tell my dog or my daughter.
Yes, lovely. Katrina, it reminded me, we've been discussing several times, yeah, this dimension, you know, that some people, they need this very impressive nature, like big park, something extraordinary. And then apparently it can change even for the same person to the level that one can be very satisfied with small weed growing on the sidewalk. Do you have lately some reflections on that? I think there's this work of American journalist, you know, who wrote a book, Nature Ethics. She was somehow highlighting that it's also, yeah, it's about place, but it's about also human capacity. So, yeah, how much expectations do we put on designing and creating these places, and how much it's our own relationship and capacity to be conscious about the small plants that they're always around us, no, or small insects that in our environment.
I don't know if I have any new reflections on that. It's just be evolving all of the time. But, and I haven't put this into words, so whatever could come out now. It's more, I observe what has happened with me, because I've definitely gone through the trajectory of missing the Finnish nature here in Belgium, where there's no nature, and I have gone completely the opposite direction now. I can really appreciate even the fly that's flying around here in my apartment. But I have the feeling that, and this is just a feeling, that at least for me, it has had to do with a complete change in learning to know the nature more, as in understanding, becoming intimate with the places here, understanding, being able to read nature, that it becomes familiar to you, that you become close to it, and then you are able to recognize things, because that's why the longing for the Finnish nature was for me as well, because this was what I knew intimately, and because it was not here, and I was feeling very unwell in my own skin, and I didn't have my safe space, which is the Finnish nature, I was feeling even worse. And then everything started to turn around when I became more intimately familiar with the Belgian nature. And that was coupled with the whole spiritual upheaval, I think, which makes it so that you start seeing all creatures on the same level. So that the weed has the same right to exist as the rose, basically. So I think that, Dave, if you are creating these outdoor spaces, I think it's a super challenging task to create something that will, first of all, appeal to everyone, because there's a lot of research in this, the different cultural aspects and the different health status, what appeals to you then. But it really, I think there are more aspects of what people start to prefer. I just think that, I run now. I'm kind of I'm in a place where I don't know. I'm kind of stuck with this reflection myself, actually. So I'm going to leave it at that.
It makes me think, Katrina, thank you, about, where do we put our resources, like even our energy? Do we put more on transforming these places? Sometimes we have very small kind of capacity of changing environments, especially when it's we have all these big parks that are also heritage places. They're very difficult to transform into more wild. These English parks that have been for maybe 150 years like that. And even it's, for very colonized, can be very colonized and very managed nature. And I think now we understand more of this cultural diversity and this more diverse needs of different nature. It's very difficult to transform, I think, this nature. So the question is, do we somehow try to dialogue stronger with policymakers to convince them on this diversification, or we work more this really supporting people in developing relationships with nature, about this, noticing nature, about learning other ways being with nature than this provisioning services, no, what we get from nature, these material things, but more on the spiritual and emotional side. So it's kind of, for me, a little bit crossroad, or maybe we have to do both. I don't know.
I have to leave soon. Can I just add something that I need to that I wanted to say is that luckily more emphasis is now being put on biodiversity protection and whatever, protecting and saving, let's say. Probably not enough, but at least it seems like there's more activity there. And to me, that feels like the golden key, that if we go that route, we can't go wrong, because then it's just going to sort of work itself out. I feel for me, it's about the rewilding in that way, that if we protect biodiversity, the wildness, and make room for the wildness, that things will sort themselves out. I think it's maybe a little bit naive and romanticized view, but I have the trust that nature will know how to take it to the right direction if we just allow it more. But I'm not sure if that's the conservationists. The arms closed conservationists might not agree.
Yeah, this rewilding process, I don't know how about rewilding our own minds, no? And yeah, Christina, maybe I come back a little bit what you said, how we create opportunities for those people that never saw any relationship with nature, you know, that can be pleasant and joyful and satisfying and really fun and very deep, no, something different than noise. How we also somehow accompany or support these groups. I don't know if I leave it quite open if someone has some ideas how we can expand this conviviality, these experiences that we have in our lives, how we can inspire others.
Yeah, I certainly think from my own personal perspective, you know, I really had an epiphany when I was 9 years old in a deeply urban environment where my family had no connection to nature whatsoever. We're in a very industrialized part of the city. There wasn't, the rivers were polluted, canals weren't very nice places to go. And basically I was taken on a field trip and taken to a place which I didn't know where it was. But at 9 years old, I just realized that there was something very special about how I was feeling, surrounded by trees and water and snow, walking in wellies down a river with a group of other kids. And I just knew that I felt really differently. And as a result of that experience at 9 years old, I knew I wanted more of it. I didn't know what it was. I could have been in Narnia for all I knew. I wasn't. I was in a big public park not too far away, but I could have been anywhere. It was a magical experience that lives with me to this day. And I think it was that epiphany moment for me that made me realize that there was something else. There was a wider sensory experience for me out there. And from that moment on, really, I wanted to find out where that came from and where I could get more of that type of feeling. And that was super important to me, really. And that was why I'm working in the role that I am today, because of that moment, because somebody flicked a switch. And yeah, it changed my life, really. And I certainly think providing those opportunities for other people, whether it's within cities or whether it's in isolated communities or whatever, to have that connection, to have that moment, you know, is really, really valuable. And the more, when I go back to my old school and talk to kids who are my age, they are so much more switched on than I was. They are so much more, they are really well informed, they're passionate, they are driven, and yeah, you know, not everyone, you know, again, life's like that, but there's a much stronger groundswell of local support, even in the poorest of urban communities. They don't quite understand why, but they recognize that this is important to their quality of life. They might not even visit their park on a daily basis, but they know that for them to survive and thrive in an urban environment, that these spaces feel like the right thing to do, that they need more access to open spaces. And that has certainly come away in the way Manchester is evolving, is that from public consultations with high levels of crime, high levels of poverty, high levels of social inequality, access to parks and green spaces is still a priority for our communities. They are telling us and telling our politicians. So it's certainly, you know, it's up there on the agenda. So yeah, really important, I think, to at least provide the spaces where these epiphanies or these connections can take place, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you, Katrina. Katrina, she said goodbye. Henrik, maybe I would like to come back a little bit to your publication that you kindly shared with us about this social transformation, know how these practices can directly or indirectly lead to social transformation. How is your feeling? How much can we drive this transformation? Or it's so much in this, epiphanies, and we don't really have any control of what we can manage. What is your feeling, Henrik, about this strategies of transformation, that if we say, yeah, let's have more opportunities for forest bathing, maybe it will bring into societal change. Let's have more open green spaces, maybe it will develop more nature relationships. What is your feeling about how much we can rely on this strategy?
Yeah, well, maybe a couple of things there. I mean, one of the points I'm trying to make in that draft article that I sent you, and in some other places too, is that if we look at this as a social movement, we need to observe, I think, that any social movement simultaneously reflects and resists the social order of its time. So a social movement exists. I mean, it's basically, well, if you look at it ecologically, basically, you see it as part of something. It exists in a context, in a social ecological context. So of a certain time, a certain history, and relations with other things that are going on in society. So any kind of movement that exists in a certain time will, to some extent, reflect the general patterns of society, in the society in which it exists. But it can also contain an element of that breaks with these patterns and points to something else. So and it depends a lot on circumstances that are to some extent in the hands of the movement, but to some extent completely out of its hands. Whether I mean, which of these tendencies will be the most decisive, most dominant in a given period. And I think regarding what we, I mean, strategies, I have come to realize, I think, lately that well, while we can make all these strategies, we can think, okay, if we do this, that's going to happen. If we do that, and this will lead to that, and etc. And that's, of course, part of making things happen, to make these strategies, to try to think what's going to happen. But I think we are as children of the Enlightenment, as we call it, we tend to place too much emphasis on reason and on the way that we can use reason to plan the future. Reason is important, an important tool for us to cope with reality and to make things go in certain directions, etc. But it's also just one of the elements with which we relate to the world. There's also emotion, there's moral sentiments, there's all kinds of and our sensory connections, everything. So, I mean, if you look at political and social developments, we can look at them a little bit like the weather. I mean, it's something that just it's going on out there, and obviously humans have some influence on the weather, but we don't have complete control over it. So we can just I think it's the most important is to remember what we value in this moment. If we think that it is valuable to connect to nature in this moment, then we should do it, and we should put all possible effort into that. But what it will lead to in the future, well, we cannot know that, but we can know what we're doing right now, and yeah, that's it. And then we can speculate about what is going to happen, but we shouldn't put too much emphasis on that, I think.
Yes. Thanks on this strong reflection. So Gira, I would like to ask you how do you feel about this? Because you've been with me in this project of urban transformation that we imagined and we wanted to drive, and we wanted even somehow to measure this social transformation. How does it feel for you now after these 2.5 years of learning in different contexts? Yeah, what is nature in culture, in healthcare system, at university, and seeing these different perspectives of people. How do you feel now? How much change can be driven by very targeted and design process?
Very good question. I would say I'm quite agree with what Hendrix was saying. Also, Katrina, what you wrote in the chat, and Christina was saying, is that we are so focused on bringing our own change and not being receptive of our surroundings. So for me, it comes to what we said before. Like, I think it was Dave who said, yes, it's about our mood and our perception and our attitude to our surroundings. So I guess I would simply say perhaps we should emphasize on our letting go and put ourselves in more receptive mode in terms of instead of trying to bring our own way of transformation. Perhaps there is already some transformation going on by itself, and perhaps we need to just being open to it in terms of always trying to intervene and bringing this transformation or change that we absolutely want to direct from our perception. So I guess even in terms of nature, or in terms of community, perhaps it's the change is there, but it's not that perhaps in our way or in the same pace as we would like to bring. So yes, I would say it's more our perception of our surrounding that we need to perhaps make an effort. Like for instance, it is not about health garden, but I guess I couldn't find a simplistic example to represent. For instance, in my garden, here, I have to say that I live in a more, let's say, urbanized area than I used to live in Brussels. And I'm trying to grow some cucumbers among other veggies here in my garden at home. And my neighbors are always complaining, saying that my cucumbers are eaten by squirrels all the time. And they said at one point, "You're not frustrated because your cucumber are always been eaten by them. Do something." And I just said, no, it's fine. I mean, I'm just sharing what I have with others. If I don't eat squirrels, I would be very sad if nobody eats it, but it's squirrels. But I could understand as well how we could feel frustrated. And perhaps if we really want to have a more convivial atmosphere, perhaps it's also about letting go of things as a human being with ourselves, but also perhaps with our own society as well. Perhaps this is what nature is doing, but perhaps it's our time to do it as well.
Thank you, Sugir. And Christina, do you see some ways, I don't know, that, yeah, from this, your difficult situations, that how let's go, or I don't know, how to accept different speeds of other people transforming, no, or
well, you have no choice, so you have to accept, because yeah, the difference, yeah, I don't know what to say. I just heard a webinar on cleaning up your house, and she says do it 10 minutes a day is better than to clean up one space. And I think maybe that kind of helps me today to say, like, every small initiative or every small thing you can do should be already helpful. Or and the speeds, there's also a very escalation of speed. So yeah, no, I have no answer. I have really no idea. Sorry. Yeah, we're gonna solve everything tonight.
yeah, nice to you bring this house cleaning issue. So it's something also on my list. Yeah, 10 minutes a day, cleaning own house.
I'll send you the link.
Trying to change humanity, no?
Yeah, and also you have to clean inside, because it's every object, and then it's got a link to something, or a memory, or a trauma, or a whatever, or yeah. We have a lot of work to do on ourselves anyway. So, well, I do.
Yeah, I feel the same. How, Dave, Henry, how do you think about these little gestures and, yeah, little cleaning own yards before we go into common spaces?
But it's I say this in the sense that I get overwhelmed. For me, what I see, for me, it's despair, because the small initiatives, it's very small, and the machinery that just goes on and on and on with building on the last soil, and this power of this money, and the livestock stuff, or fisheries, or whatever. It's so big, and it's like it's getting bigger, like a snowball. And so for me, most of the time it's pure despair, but something like this, it helps me from time to time. To
Yeah.
say that all the small initiatives, well, at least it's that,
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I reshape a bit, my question. How do we live with this trouble, no, and with this schizophrenia that our speed of cleaning own traumas and own cupboards and gardens and yards are so slow, and then there's this massive processes of exploration that we have somehow no power. How do we stay in this harmony? Is it possible to stay in this harmony, or what are your reflections, Dave, and then Henrik?
I just think it's really challenging. I think, as Christina's alluded to, it's, we're, from a planetary point of view, it seems quite a desperate situation, but, we're in a position where you can either, bury your head in the sand and, hide away in a corner, or you can try and be as positive as you can be and try and make as big a difference as you possibly can, whether it's in cleaning your own house, cleaning your neighborhood, improving your city. It's just about whatever level you can do to just keep your sanity. And I might say, not because if I don't know what people were like last year, but I probably stopped watching the news after a while just because it was so depressing. And I think it's that thing from a human level. I just need to draw on some levels of positivity without being unrealistic about it. We're seeing the challenges that are huge, vastly growing population of humanity on Earth. It's going to have massive effects, in the longer term. The planet will survive. It's our species that will suffer more than any. The planet will resolve itself and will heal itself, but yeah, it's really difficult because you think, well, if we were all of that mindset, but with 7 billion of us on the planet and with such inequalities, it's incredibly difficult. And I think if you look at levels like that, you would just hide away in a corner and and put your fingers in your ears and close your eyes. But we do have to try and come out of our bunkers and our silos and our front doors and walk past those neighbors that Christina has got who threatened to kill a cat. Try and keep sanity, keep sane and not get angry or upset. And yeah, keep going. It's really difficult, super challenging. I think life is. I think that's it. I always like the idea that we're living in heaven. This is our heaven, but to some people as well, it can be their hell, and it's really difficult to marry those up sometimes. But it's also, it's that thing that it's a shared space. As humans, we forget that we're a part of nature, not apart from it. And I think that's one of the big ones, really. And it's little steps. I think it is, as Christina said, probably 10 minutes a day is the best way to clean the house. And I think trying to do all things at once, it's about incremental change. And again, we all look at it on our lifetime, but with respect, 50 to 100 years on the planet is nothing to the planet. So it's our own individual, it's what we can do in our time on Earth to make the most of it, really, and to try and improve it where we can. I suppose that takes us back to that those shared values, and we all do it, don't we? We gravitate to people who have got similar interests, and that builds that conviviality and builds that rapport, that trust, where you can have, not just fleeting conversations, but you can have dialogues, you can have discussions, you can have, you can cry on somebody's shoulder if you need to. It's I don't know. Just waxing lyrical there, I think.
Yes, that's really encouraging. And Henrik, what more scientific mind is saying? Where is way of anchoring or stabilizing or finding peace for us. How do you feel about this double binds and?
Well, yeah, I think a lot has been said about, you know, like acceptance, letting go, etc. That's one thing, but also, I mean, to keep some sense of who we are and what we want, and even in the face of impossible odds. I guess that's what Joanna Macy has called active hope, for example, to just work on something. It doesn't matter how things are looking. It just we can just do what we do, and I think as also Christina observed, that small everyday things that we do can be important there to clean our own steps and to or our houses or our neighborhoods or to be creative in our lives and to be creative by ourselves and together with others and all of these things. I think yeah, everything that sort of puts our hearts into what we're doing is valuable. I don't know what I can make of that from an academic point of view, but it's well, one of the things that is happening now, I think, is that the barriers between the academic and the non-academic are sort of breaking down a little bit. So yeah, no, I don't know what else to add there, really. And by the way, I need to start wrapping things up here.
Yeah.
Do we have some sort of time plan here?
Yes, I think it's a nice moment, no, to round, and I think it's really, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing this very nice and sensitive ideas. I think it's really lovely, like you, Henrik, said, and Dave just before, to have the circle of shared values, no, where we can support each other as community. So I think that's extremely important, no, to have this bridges between academia and no academia and past academics and future academics and just normal human beings and non-human beings that been with us even in this today's call, connecting in our environments and listening in different ways. So I'm really very grateful for this conversation. I think it's the nicest birthday present that I ever had to exchange with you and to feel.
Oh yes, happy
Is it your
birthday!
birthday, Vitalia?
So thanks for your time and
Your birthday.
Happy
you.
Birthday, Vitalia.
Oh,
Shall we sing happy birthday to her?
Yes, thank you. It's really a birthday gift, and I'm so happy to have this wonderful community. So let's stay connected in our work and in our all daily tasks.